Hello students, you are with Bindu Chaudhary and we are continuing our past part 3rd, and in this part we are continuing chapter 9th. Yes, we are starting chapter 9th. The name of the chapter is The Making of the National Movement from 1870s to 1947. Today we are pursuing its part first, but let's recall the previous one. Yes, previous chapters, lot of chapters up to 8th chapters we had already covered, and in these 8 chapters we had taken a long journey of the tribal people, long journeys of the sepoys, long journeys of the origin of the new cities, as well as conditions and the formations of the East India Company's entrance, and after that the capturing of the territories parts. What another things we had already learned? Let's see this one also. See, this one is the picture of a Quit India movement. Police tear gas demonstrators during that one. See, these are the tear gases. हम कहते हैं ना अश्रु गैस छोड़ी थी पुलिस ने जब हमारे यहाँ पे क्विट इंडिया आंदोलन चल रहा था. But before this, what happened, students? See here. In the previous chapters, we have looked at first one, the British conquest of territories and takeover of kingdoms. How these Britishers taken our first of all territories, one by one they captured our territories only for the purpose of the trade, because they know very well that it's okay, they came here only for the purpose of the trade, but trade is not totally possible for them, because many kingdoms, many rajas, many nawabs, zamindars, they didn't accepted their conditions. So these British conquest our territories as taken over by their kingdoms also. Next one here, we had already read about the introduction of new laws and administrative institutions, how these new laws came into existence. And for example, we are saying about the abolishment of sati pratha, new law organized or regularized by the Britishers with support of whom? Yes, let's recall our previous chapter, with the help of Raja Ram Mohan Rai. And second one, the new law about the remarriages of the widows. So Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar, one of the reformers of that time, he supported, and with the help of him these Britishers attempt a new law for all these things. Next one is the changes in the lives of the peasants and tribals. Lot of changes took place in the lives of peasants as well as in the lives of the tribals, as we had already read in the tribals part. How these Britishers one by one they captured the forest parts, and they regularized a new law about the forest, a forest department made by them, and as per that department, no tribes, no tribal peoples were allowed in the forest for any purpose, for the cutting of fruits, trees, XYZ, for the any purpose. But how they themselves changed their life by educating themselves with the Christian missionaries, by switching off themselves for the plantation of teas in Assam, for the switching of the labor purpose from one place to another one. Same one with the peasants. Peasants also had a lot of changes in their lives, and one by one they also changed and switched off them from one place to another place. One more changes took place on that time, educational changes in the 19th century. See, Mekale Paddhati also there, and that one Woods, Charles Wood had given a Woods Dispatch, and only on his name it was called as a Wood's Dispatch on that time, and in that one many new colleges, universities, even schoolings were opened on that time, and educational changes took a lot of in the life of the Indian peoples, because before this one they only taught as a Sanskrit and other Hindi and other subjects, but after Britishers entered in our India, they wanted ourselves to know about the English, to know about the science, technology and literatures all over the world. What is going on that time? These Britishers wanted that we Indian peoples also modify ourselves in such a way that with the help of the education we also felt a lot of changes in ourselves. Next one is the debates regarding the conditions of women. In the 8th chapter, we had discussed about the conditions of the women, how Sati Pratha, how widows' condition described in that way, and how these people with the help of the reformers, these women with the help of the reformers changed their conditions one by one. Many reformers in the different area of our India, in the different places, different states of India, they took a fully participation in the renovations of the women, in the changes in the laws, in the conditions of the women. So with the help of the education, women also helped themselves, as they were taught in the pathshalas, and the new pathshalas were opened by them, as first Jyotirao Phule also opened that one, Vidyachand Sagar also opened schooling for the purpose of the women. So lot of changes took place in the lives of the women, and many debates were going on that time, because on that time not only the reformers were there, but many opposers were also there, because they always boycott these reformers, always boycott the policies of these reformers, and they thought that if the women were allowed to go in the school, then how these household works or domestic works will be done by them. And at present the situation is same. स्टूडेंट्स, आप खुद देख रहे हैं बच्चों क्या हो रहा है अब लाइफ में हो रहा है। गर्ल्स कहती हैं हमने तो कभी अपनी मदर के घर पे चाय ही नहीं बनाई, हमने तो कभी किचन में एंट्री ही नहीं की। इट्स ओके ओनली फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ द कुकिंग, नॉट फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ ईटिंग। ओके, सी हियर अदर चेंजेस टुक प्लेस mainly in the caste system. We had already learned in our previous part about the 4 castes, especially our society divided into 4 castes. First one is the main upper class. In the upper class we had studied that Brahmins and Kshatriyas were there. In the next stage came the Vaishyas, and in that one the money lenders, the traders came, and in the third part, in the Shudras portion, the workers, weavers, teachers and other persons who work for some earnings, they came, and in the last we had already discussed about the untouchables, about the lower class of the society. So lot of changes took place in the caste system. Many reformers took initiative for the betterment of the lower class peoples and untouchables. Even Bhimrao Ambedkar, even Jyotirao Phule, even the other fellows also in the different regions of our India took initiative for the betterment of the caste system in our society. See, many social and religious reforms were also there in that time. We had studied these also, and the main and the final, the revolt of 1857 and its aftermath. We had already discussed about this revolt, how the sepoys started from the Meerut and went to Delhi, and with the help of Bahadur Shah Zafar and with the monitoring of Bahadur Shah Zafar, every kingdom, every Rajas, every Nawabs wanted themselves to be again the main whole and soul of the state or region. So we had discussed this revolt of 1857 and aftermath in our previous chapters. we have the main things also about the industries, students. The decline of crafts and growth of industries. We had studied how in the First World War, when Britishers only took iron and steel in India for the purpose of the using purpose, but what happened after First World War? Europe needs more iron, more steel, and on that time Britishers moved from India to them and supplied material to the persons who are using material in the First World War. But what happened here in our India? TISCO, with the help of Jamshedji's Tata's elder son Dorabji Tata, and one of the geologists, TISCO industry developed here, and when it was established here, many changes took place in the growth of the industries. And when we are talking about the decline of the crafts, so see, many patterns took place on that time for the declining of the crafts. Next one is, on the basis of all these issues of what you have read about all these things, do you think Indians were disconnected with British rule? It's okay, many changes took place on that time, but not we will fully said that on that time we are totally disconnected with the British rule. If so, how were different groups and classes dissatisfied? When we are fully saying that it's okay, many things going on that time for the improvement of all these things, as we had already discussed in our earlier chapters, then how we will say that these groups were different and classes were totally dissatisfied on that time? So this one is the starting of our chapter, because we had already discussed some clues about the previous chapters. How this one is coming here about the nationalism here, the emergencies of nationalism. What things happened on that time? See here, the above mentioned developments led the people to ask a crucial question. One important question was arised on that time. See here, what is this country of India? And for whom is it meant? The important thing is this one. So here is the answer of this one. The answer that gradually emerged was, India was the people of India. India was the people of India. All the people, irrespective of class, maybe of any classes, maybe of any colors, maybe of any caste, maybe of any creed, maybe of any language, because we know that at present also in India lot of languages, regional languages were also using on that time, and at present we are using these lot of changes and lot of languages at present in India also. Or whether maybe they are male or female, whether of each gender, and the country, its resources and systems were meant for all of them. See the conditions कि हमारे पास में इसका आंसर है बच्चों. हम कह सकते हैं कि हमारे इंडिया में किसी भी क्लास के पीपल को ले लें, किसी भी कलर के पीपल को ले लें, किसी भी लैंग्वेज वाले पीपल को ले लें, या फिर हम कहें कि भले वो लेडीज़ हो या जेंट्स हो, मैनी थिंग्स एमर्ज हेयर, क्योंकि हमारा इंडिया कोई एक जगह, एक स्टेट से नहीं बना है. हमारा इंडिया पूरे जो अलग अलग स्टेट्स हैं, रीजन्स हैं, उनको मिला के बना हुआ है, उनके लोगों को मिला के बना हुआ है. दैट्स वाई वी आर सेइंग दैट इट्स रिसोर्सेज एंड सिस्टम्स वर meant for all of them, not for a single person, not for a group of persons it belonged. So this consciousness began to be clearly stated by the political associations formed after 1850. So many associations formed after 1850, especially when we are talking, students, especially those that came into being in the 1870s and 1880s, 1870s और 1880s के बीच में कई associations develop हुई थी. So what happens here? See, most of these were led by English educated professionals such as lawyers. Mainly these associations run by the professionals, English educated professionals or lawyers of that time, and the more important ones were the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, the Indian Association, the Madras Mahajan Sabha, the Bombay Presidency Association, and of course the Indian National Congress. See, many associations were formed on that time, and some of the names are here. Pune सार्वजनिक सभा, ये सब एसोसिएशंस वहाँ पे फॉर्म्ड की गई थी पुणे सार्वजनिक सभा के नाम से। और इसके अलावा अगर हम देखें द इंडियन एसोसिएशन, मद्रास महाजन सभा, बॉम्बे प्रेसिडेंसी एसोसिएशन और इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस, इसके अलावा भी कई बनी। देखिए यहाँ पे नोट द नेम पुणे सार्वजनिक सभा। हम यहाँ पे स्पेशली फर्स्ट जो हमारा नेम है पुणे सार्वजनिक सभा, इसके बारे में भी यहाँ पे डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं स्टूडेंट्स। द लिटरल मीनिंग ऑफ सार्वजनिक, व्हेन वी आर सेइंग पुणे सार्वजनिक सभा, देन व्हाट इज द लिटरल मीनिंग ऑफ सार्वजनिक? सी हियर, it is of or for all the people. Serve, see here, sarva it means all, and zanik it means of the people, all of the people, not of any caste, not of any religion, not of any tribal or countryside, or we will say rural or urban people, all the people. So here, though many of these associations functioned in specific parts of the country, their goals were stated as the goals of all the people of India, not those of any one region, community or class. Again, the main theme grasped from these sentences is what, students? द मेन थीम ग्रेस्प्ड हेयर इज कि आप भले किसी भी रीजन से हो, आप भले किसी भी क्लास से बिलोंग कर रहे हो, आप भले किसी भी रिलीजन से बिलोंग कर रहे हो। द मेन थिंग हैपन कि जब हम कहते हैं सर्व मीन्स ऑल एंड जेनिक मीन्स ऑफ द पीपल, तो हम यहाँ पे जितने भी ये एसोसिएशंस बनाई गई हैं, दीज आर मेंट फॉर ऑल द communities, all the classes, all the regions, not for meant only for the one specialized region, caste or classes here. They worked with the idea, whom? Associations worked with the idea that people should be servant. Servant means a modern consciousness and a key feature of nationalism. Nationalism के key feature कौन है बच्चों? Peoples are the key features for the purpose of the nationalism, for the purpose of the sovereignty of any country. In other words, we will say that they believed that the Indian people should be empowered to take decisions regarding their affairs. These reformers have the same mentality, so that's why they formed an association for ourselves, for the betterment of the India, because they thought that all these things, all the people of India empowered by the decisions, empowered by the main decisions, because on that time we are under the rules of Britishers, we are under the control of the Britishers. So these associations were formed and these Indian people should be empowered to take the decisions regarding their own affairs, not the outsiders will take any type of decisions on that time. So these associations one by one reformed and these associations worked on that time. The Arms Act was passed in the year 1878, disallowing Indians from possessing arms, because on that time many Indians have also arms and they were using against the Britishers. So especially Arms Act was passed in the year 1878, and under this act no Indians were allowed to possess the arms with themselves. So, in the same year, the Vernacular Press Act was also enacted, an effort to silence those who were critical of the government. See, on that time Britishers ruled over India, and Britishers took many hard decisions against the Indian peoples. So Indian peoples time to time gave their decisions in the printing media, in the newspapers, but Vernacular Press Act was passed on that time, and as per this act the main efforts of the silence were enacted, because they not allowed Indian people to use these stands to contribute with the nations, to contribute their views, to contribute the feelings about the freedom of India. So this Vernacular Act was passed. Again, the act allowed the government to confiscate the assets of the newspapers, including their printing presses, if the newspapers published anything that was found objectionable. See what happened, students? British rulers so much oppressed our Indians that they didn't allow any newspaper on that time, that if any news regarding the Indians or from the Indians, then that newspaper was found to be objectionable. और होता भी यही था बच्चों। क्या होता था कि जैसे ही प्रेस में हमारे जो क्रांतिकारी हैं, हमारे जो रिफॉर्मर्स हैं, समाज सुधारक हैं, वो कोई भी न्यूज़ डालते थे तो एज़ पर वर्नाकुलर प्रेस एक्ट उसको ऑब्जेक्शनेबल करके जो गवर्नमेंट है वो उसे हटवा देती थी. सो दिस मैनी क्रूशियल कंडीशंस वर गोइंग ऑन दैट टाइम. और हम क्या देखते हैं कि हमारे इंडिया में जो फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल है वो इतनी आसान नहीं थी जो अब हम कहते हैं ना कि हम आज़ाद हैं. बट हाउ वी गॉट आवर फ्रीडम, सी द कंडीशंस हेयर. In the 1883, there was a furor over the attempt by the government to introduce the Albert Bill. New bill was introduced by the British governments in the year 1883. See, this bill provided for the trial of British or European persons by Indians and sought equality between British and Indian judges in the country. This Albert Bill was passed for the purpose of the judges. Maybe they belonged from the British, maybe they belonged from the Indian formation. So this one is the new bill introduced by the government on that time. And see, but when white oppositions, white it means Britishers, they were white in color. At present they are also white, but it's no important that the color is the main thing here. But when white opposition forced the government to withdraw the bill, Indians were अनरेज्ड. जैसे ही अंग्रेज़ों ने कहा कि यह तो बिल गलत है, आपको इस बिल को विड्रॉ कर लेना चाहिए, ऑन दैट टाइम आवर इंडियंस वर ऑल्सो अनरेज्ड देयर व्यूज़ दैट नो दिस विल नॉट हैपन इन द timing. So the need for an all India organization of educated Indians had been felt since 1880. बट द एल्बर्ट बिल कंट्रोवर्सी डिपेंड्स दिस डिज़ायर. बहुत ही प्रॉब्लम हो रही थी. 1880 के आसपास ऐसा अनुभव किया जाने लगा था बच्चों कि कुछ ऐसी एसोसिएशंस, ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बनाई जाए जहाँ पर कि एडुकेटेड पीपल्स जो हैं, एडुकेटेड इंडियंस जो हैं, वो अपनी तरफ से बात रख सके, अपनी तरफ से देश की आज़ादी में योगदान के लिए देश को संगठित कर सके. On that time, this bill controvert the desires of ourselves. See, the Indian National Congress. We had already discussed just here that many associations were formed on that time. The Indian National Congress was established when 72 delegates 72 delegates from all over the country met at Bombay in December 1885. See how Indian National Congress came into existence. It was established with the 72 delegates, and where in the Indian country in Bombay, at Bombay in December 1885. द अर्ली लीडरशिप, स्टार्टिंग में लीडरशिप में कौन कौन थे? 72 डेलीगेट्स आ गए थे वहाँ पे। 72 डेलीगेट्स जो हैं वो बॉम्बे में इकट्ठे हो गए थे, और वो सब क्या कर रहे थे? दिसंबर में वो इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस को बना रहे थे। सो द मेन लीडर्स वर दादा भाई नौरोजी, फिरोज शाह मेहता, बदरुद्दीन तैयब जी, WC बनर्जी, सुरेंद्र नाथ बैनर्जी, रमेश दत्त, S सुब्रमण्य अय्यर, और भी कई लोग थे। Among others was largely from Bombay and Calcutta. So most of the leaders are these from that time. Nauroji, who was Nauroji? Nauroji was a businessman and publicist settled in London, and for a time member of the British Parliament, guided the young nationalist. It's okay, Nauroji was the member of the British Parliament, but on that time he guided the younger nationalist for the purpose of the India. A retired British official, A.O. Hume, also played a part in bringing Indians from the various regions together. A.O. Hume also participated in the formation of this movement, and what happened on that time? See, he also played an important role for the Indians from the various regions. He collected them. He told them that it's okay, one by one, from any caste, from any region, you came here on only for the formation of this one. And the dream of a nation in the making. It has often been said that the Congress in the first 20 years was moderate in its objectives and methods. हम जब कांग्रेस की बात करते हैं बच्चों, तो हमें पता है कि गरम दल और नरम दल की बातें की जाती हैं। तो क्या हुआ था, किस तरह से ये फॉर्मेशंस में आई थी और कब क्या हुआ था? देखिए, इन द स्टार्टिंग 20 years कांग्रेस was moderate in its objectives as well as in its methods, but during this period it demanded a greater voice for Indians in the government and in administration. This Congress always aroused the issues about the Indians and about the administration on our Indians from the government of the Britishers. So these people always had new thoughts for the purpose of the Indian peoples. It wanted the legislative councils to be made more representative, given more power, and introduced in provinces where none existed. और भी काफ़ी काम किए जा रहे थे उस समय बच्चों। हुआ क्या कि ये जितने भी लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल्स की स्थापना की घोषणा की जाने लगी, ये चाहते थे कि और ज़्यादा रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स होने चाहिए। ये चाहते थे कि इंडियंस को और ज़्यादा पावर मिलना चाहिए। उनके जो प्रोविंसेस हैं जहाँ पर कि अभी तक ऐसा कुछ भी लेजिस्लेटिव मेंबर्स के रूप में उनको नहीं लिया गया है, तो लेट्स देम आल्सो बी taken. So it demanded that Indians be placed in high positions in the government, because they thought that we Indians not only ruled by the Britishers, why we themselves from the educated range, why we themselves not taken the highest position. So they demanded this one also for the biggest position, for the best position in the government side. For this purpose, it called for civil service examinations to be held in India as well, not just in London. In the starting time, what happened? This civil service examination was held only in London. But these people raised this issue that why not this examination held in India also. So they called for this one. दे अराइज देयर इश्यूज़ फॉर दिस वन कि हमारे यहाँ पे भी जो सिविल सेवा परीक्षा है उसको सालाना करवाने की घोषणा की जाए। सिर्फ लंदन है, बहुत कम लोग जा पाते थे, आपको पता है, तो इसके लिए भी बहुत ज़्यादा आवाज़ें उठाई जाने लगी थी। Since British officers were sending a major part of their large salaries at home, the another main issue aroused on that time, see here, these British officers who were working in India, they send a large part of their salaries at home. It means out of India. So Indianization, it was hoped, would also reduce the drain of wealth to England. और अगर हमारे यहाँ पे ही पढ़े लिखे सिविल सर्विस एग्जामिनेशन में सेलेक्टेड मेंबर्स होंगे तो हमारे इंडिया का ये जो पैसा इंग्लैंड जाता है वह जाना रुक जाएगा। सो दीज पीपल डिमांडेड टू हेल्ड सिविल सर्विस एग्जामिनेशंस इन इंडिया। अदर डिमांड्स इंक्लूडेड द separation of the judiciary from the executive. This one also aroused on that time, that judiciary and executives, these two are different things. So it's better that these may be separated. The repeal of the Arms Act and the freedom of speech and expression. Not only judiciary executive demands arised on that time, the main other demands also arised by the people of India about the Arms Act. In this Arms Act, what happened, students? No Indians were allowed to use arms. So they wanted to repeal these Arms Act as well as the freedom of speech and expression, as Vernacular Press Act was released by the Britishers, by the government of the India of that time. The Congress demanded reduction of revenue. और भी बहुत सारी मांगे कांग्रेस के द्वारा करी जा रही थी। देखिए क्या क्या। The Congress demanded reduction of revenue, cut in military expenditure and more funds फॉर इरिगेशन। यहीं पे कांग्रेस जो है वो अपनी बात को लेके फिनिश नहीं होती है। कांग्रेस और भी डिमांड्स करती है। उस समय वो चाहते थे कि जितना भी रेवेन्यू है उस रेवेन्यू को कम किया जाए, प्लस मिलिट्री एक्सपेंडिचर्स, मैनी एक्सपेंडिचर्स हेल्ड ऑन द मिलिट्री पर्पसेस। फॉर दैट वन कांग्रेस सेड दैट इट्स ओके, यू रिड्यूस दैट वन आल्सो, एंड more funds needed for the purpose of the irrigation, because irrigation conditions were not better on that time. It passed many resolutions for that purpose. What happened? It passed many resolutions on the salt tax, treatment of Indian laborers abroad, and the sufferings of forest dwellers caused by an interfering forest administration. As we had already discussed that Mahatma Gandhi started the Dandi Yatra, and on that time there was a high tax on salts. So Congress passed the resolution about the salt tax and about the treatment of Indian laborers in abroad, because in abroad the conditions of Indian laborers was not better. So Congress raised this issue also, and especially for the purpose of the forest dwellers, for the sufferings of the forest dwellers, these Congress demands that forest administration had to be changed. Many changes took place, and for these purpose also you want to, government also want to amend their changes. So what happened? All these shows that despite being a body of the educated elite, the Congress did not talk only on behalf of professionals groups, zamindars और इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट. हम क्या देखते हैं कि सब कुछ हुआ, एडुकेटेड एलाइट्स भी थे, पर सिर्फ और सिर्फ प्रोफेशनल्स के द्वारा, ज़मींदार्स के द्वारा या फिर इंडस्ट्रीज के द्वारा, इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट जो उस वक्त काम कर रहे थे उन्हीं के द्वारा आवाज़ उठाई जाए, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा था. The moderate leaders wanted to develop public awareness about the unjust nature of British rule. So these moderate leaders always demanded that it's okay, we need public awareness, and the unjust nature of British rule was also not accepted by these moderate leaders. They published newspapers, wrote articles, and showed how British rule was leading to the economic ruin of the country. See, these moderate peoples, they didn't stop their voice. They always raised many things. They published newspapers, they published articles, and in that articles they always shows the possessiveness of our Indian peoples. They showed how this British rule always leading the economic ruin. हम आर्थिक रूप से भी, हम जो इंडियंस हैं आर्थिक रूप से भी बहुत ही ज़्यादा पिछड़ रहे थे. So these moderates criticized British rule in their speeches and sent representatives to different parts of the country to mobilize public opinion. It's okay, these people already knew that all the public was not aware on that time, so many of the representatives went from one place to another place in India, in our country, for the mobilize of our public opinion. So many issues arise by these moderate leaders, and many things happened for the Indian national movement. What happened next in our chapter, we will continue in our next part. Stay with us, stay tuned, stay healthy.